All right, you're very welcome to this week's RTÉ Soccer Podcast. I'm Raf Diallo. As ever, you can watch or listen wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And if you need timestamps for the topics you're interested in, each week you'll find them on rte.ie/sport and also under the YouTube video. Lots again on this week's episode. We'll bring you an interview with Republic of Ireland Assistant Manager John O'Shea, which was recorded early last week. The next Boys in Green squad will be named later this week, so we'll touch on that with Keith Treacy and Richie Towell, as well as all of the weekend's League of Ireland action. And the first round of Women's Premier Division games is done and dusted, so Shelbourne's Rachel Graham and RT Sports' Anthony Pyne will be along later for a chat. Now, before we get to all of that, there is a new football show on the horizon here on RT aimed at a younger audience. It's called Total Football and it's hosted by Aisling O'Reilly and Rusty Nsimba. And episode 1 is out this Saturday, 15th March at 10 a.m. on RT2 and the RTÉ Player. The debut episode wastes no time in getting into the action. The Total Football team will sit down with Premier League star Evan Ferguson in the UK, catch up with Julianne Russell in studio, and head to Galway to meet the rising stars of Salt Hill Devon FC. So here's a wee taste of the chat with Evan Ferguson, who's now on loan at West Ham, and also featuring another Irish player at Brighton in goalkeeper Cillian Cahill.
A lot of Irish players have done well when they've come over here and they've seen the pathway, and I think once you can see that, it's a no-brainer really.
With Brighton being a pathway for Irish internationals in the English game, up-and-coming goalkeeper Cillian Cahill is one of the names looking to make his mark here.
I think when you come over to the UK and you move away from home, it is nice to kind of have Irish faces around the place. You kind of have that good atmosphere and really good team chemistry. Obviously Ev's different, like the way he's kicked on, it's unbelievable. It's gone very quick for me, and I think it comes with its highs and its lows, you know what I mean? You can do so well and then you get an injury and you lose form and you try to bring it back up, so it's sort of, it comes with everything and that's what it is, but you just have to try to keep on going.
All right, so that's a wee snippet from Total Football, and as I said, kicking off this Saturday at 10 a.m. on RT2 and RTÉ Player. Now, I did mention at the end of last week's podcast that we would hopefully have an interview with a member of the Republic of Ireland men's coaching staff, and it's none other than Assistant Manager John O'Shea. I spoke to him last Tuesday afternoon in the wake of his involvement in a social experiment of sorts. Heineken 0.0 has been conducting a matchday experiment as part of their Sports Bring Us Together campaign to prove that sport is better when watched together. Ireland and Munster rugby player Peter O'Mahony, who will be retiring after the Six Nations campaign, is one part of the equation, and he watched a match with a group. And John O'Shea, the Ireland assistant manager who's on with me here, seemed to draw the short straw because he was watching a game all by his lonesome. John, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, all good, Raf. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
And yourself?
Yeah, not too bad now. And I understand this experiment, there was cutting edge technology being used, and there was a neuroscience tech partner called Neuron that was part of this. So you're wearing an EEG cap, which basically monitors electric activity in the brain. So while you're watching this game alone. So how did you get on? How did you find the experience?
Yeah, it was obviously very strange. Normally, I would I'd be watching a game like that. If you're in a social occasion like that, I'd be definitely with a few friends, and it's a lot more enjoyable now. But also, it was quite refreshing a little bit too, for a little bit at a time, that you have your own company and you're just chilling out. But then you soon realise, oh, where's everyone gone and what's happening? So it was no, it was. I'm glad that the neuroscientists were able to say that my brain was working as well. So there was a couple of bonuses from it.
Yeah, and obviously the experiment found that watching a game with others amplifies excitement, boosting motivation by 24% before kickoff and keeping emotional stimulation 20% higher during slower moments throughout the game. So obviously Peter got the look of the draw on that side of it. But you've had a bit of a watching brief since November ahead of this March window. So quite a long time to watch Ireland players. You've been around at different games. I think one example with Heimir, I think you were at Burnley versus Sunderland as well. Like, what's the game plan before you go to a game like that, in terms of what you're looking out for and the feedback you want?
Yeah, but it's, in a sense, it's, yeah, you're hoping to meet the players afterwards if you can as well, quickly too. But just keeping an eye on the form, how they are mentally and physically. You're watching clips on players, obviously, that you can't get to, but in the main, is if you can get to see them in the flesh and live, you just pick up on little things as well. But I think the key bit would be just keeping that relationship with the players as well, and obviously maybe keeping an eye on potential new players as well too. So you have to cover a wide range, and myself and the manager, we've been out to we've been out to lots of games over the last couple of months. But look, it's enjoyable too because obviously you're involved in football. You're going to watch football and meeting people and having good conversations as well.
Yeah, like say, for example, that Burnley Sunderland game when you're there, for example, Josh Cullen, I think you'll know all about him in terms of what he brings to the table. There are a couple others like Ireland eligible players, let's call them CJ Egan Riley, Dennis Cirk, and all of those. Are they all part of what you're looking at as well? I know maybe you mightn't be able to give away whether or not they're specifically the type of players you're looking for, but is there that thing of players who are eligible to play for Ireland that you are kind of going out your way to look for them as well?
Yeah, you have to look. You're aware, whether it be through connections at clubs, through managers, through agents, whatever it might be, that these players are available, and maybe some of the players are not too sure of their eligibility, etc. And you have to do a bit of digging and the background checks, etc. But listen, we have to make sure we have, and we go through every possibility to help Ireland qualify for tournaments. Raf, I think that's the key element. You need that competition. We need a fully competitive squad, and most importantly, we need the players playing. We need the players playing week in, week out to really help us get that competitive element back, especially when the qualifiers come around. In particular, the big games coming up against Bulgaria, but most importantly, obviously, when you're on that build up to September.
Yeah, and obviously the squad will be announced. They could be in and around next Thursday, it should be. But can we expect one or two of those, that profile of players, those maybe that are eligible but haven't yet, haven't been part of the pool as of yet?
Oh, let's wait and see. Look, the manager will decide on that front. But look, as I said, we've gone and looked at lots of options. And most importantly, we've looked at obviously the players that are fully committed already. Most importantly, I think that's the key bit, that you have that dedication to those boys as well, that come over and meet up every camp as well, and that are there at any chance that they
Yeah.
need to come and represent Ireland too. So we have to remember that as well.
Yeah, and the League of Ireland as well. Where does that fit in terms of the wider scouting pool? Because I know, for example, Hamer's been at a few games here, but also you were at, I think my understanding, you were at Talca Park for Shelbourne against Shamrock Rovers as well.
Yeah, look, definitely it has to fit in because when you have the teams with some of the young talent that they have and that have done well in Europe too, that they have to come under our scrutiny, come under our eye to see if they can be involved and help us out in any way, Raf. We have to look at every avenue, and the more the talent that's in the League of Ireland as well, you can see it right from from the start of the season too, and the profile that the league has in terms of the announcement of obviously Mason's move to Tottenham Hotspur, that profile that got as well. So, but most importantly, look, taking it back from away from all that, it's just what players can help us qualify, what players can help us win games. That's what we have to look at.
And the forward department is quite exciting at the moment in terms of the form, and particularly Troy Parrott today is at Alkmaar. You've also Adam Ida doing quite well at Celtic. Callum Robinson's been scoring goals in the Championship at Cardiff. I think 12 goals this season so far. And then at the same time, the likes of Evan Ferguson coming back from injury, and with that loan move to West Ham, and Sammy Smodics as well at Ipswich. You're kind of spoiled for choice there. There's two profile of player there. There's the ones that have been in good form now for a number of months, and then you have the players who are trying to build their way back. And the two that I mentioned specifically are the ones that have probably had the jersey, so to speak. So how do you deal with that dilemma in terms of, on one hand, maintaining the continuity you've had, but also at the same time being able to send a message to the squad that those in form will perhaps have a bit of an advantage?
Yeah, you're spot on. It's a shame we can't play 6 or 7 strikers at different times, Raf. But no, look, it's striking the balance, I suppose, would be the key element. Yeah, ideally you want every player playing fully fit. I think that would make a huge difference to us when you do have that, because the preparation time, in terms of the working time you have on the grass with the players. It's not as if you don't get the chance to do fitness work with the players when they come in for such a short spell, and you're traveling off to Bulgaria, and then you're coming back in a day or day and a half later. Then you're playing the second leg of it. So it's key that the majority hopefully will be coming in match fit, mentally, physically ready to play those two games. Whatever, all the squad. Some players obviously will play more minutes than others naturally, but the more players are playing for their clubs, Raf, it's huge for us. It really is huge, and it'll be a big difference in how the performance goes in the games, really.
Yeah, and obviously Troy making the move to the continent is kind of an interesting one. Festy Abasele there has gone to Turkey now in January. We've Andrew Amrabat Madele in France, Gavin Bazoun in Belgium. Jake O'Brien had that experience at Lyon, which I think really pushed his case to get into the Ireland squad in the first place. And there've been a number of others as well over the last couple of years. It's a pathway going to the continent that has seemingly become much more open for Irish players. Is that something that you're keen to see more of, given how difficult it is to get on the ladder in the Championship and in the Premier League?
Look, every player Raf will be individual in that case. In a sense, we won't care if they're playing in Waterford, Turkey, Dublin, Scotland. If they're going to help Ireland and they're fit and competitive and they're playing, and we want those players, whatever the case may be, and that's key. It's great if players feel that Irish players go and travel and experience it. I was fortunate I was able to get out on loan to Belgium and experience that the top flight in the Belgian league when I was younger, and I felt it really benefited me, not just football wise, but also mentally maturing as a person as well, having to cope with that as well. So at a younger age, so every player, Raf, will be different. But I just feel it, and the more experience the players are getting, whatever league, whatever country they're in, it's hopefully that they're playing week in, week out, because that's the key for us.
Yeah, and one of your old teammates, Killian Sheridan, would have been in Bulgaria at a certain time many years ago, and also got capped 3 times for Ireland at that stage. But you also played with Dimitar Berbatov, who would be one of their greatest ever players. Like, what's your sense of them now? Because I suppose their Bulgaria's great times probably coincided with our strongest period as a football nation, but their fall has been a lot harder than ours has been. Like, what's your sense of what they will bring to the table this month?
Yeah, look, I definitely, I know what you're saying in terms of the so-called star names, but that's, you don't want to be, no way will we be anyway disrespectful, because when you see the results over maybe their last 10, 12 games, yeah, there's one kind of, I suppose, a strange one, but when the North managed to score 5 against them, but other than that, the games are really close, really tight. Good experienced manager, and obviously good experienced players too. So it'll be a tight game, I'm imagining, but one you'd hope. Look, any team, when you play like that in a situation, they're coming from pot C and we're in pot B, that you hope that we can obviously come out on top of it without a doubt.
Yeah, and you played, I think, in your 118 caps 3 times against Bulgaria. So once in 2004, and then there's 2 qualifiers in 2009, one of which you play at right back and the other at centre back. So we're at a period now when this kind of Ireland pool of players that we have, there's a number of them that can play right back. Darrow O'Shea, who you use there, Bamidele as well. Jake O'Brien is kind of the interesting one at Everton, who seems to have been getting a huge amount of game time since David Moyes came in that position. So I imagine you have that understanding of what that shift across is like. What have you made of how Jake has got on in that sort of new position that he's had to fill in?
No, look, it's been brilliant to see, but I'm just waiting for Jake to go in goal and go in midfield, and then he'll be fully complete. No, but in all seriousness, it's just been brilliant to see, because the type of kid that Jake is, how dedicated he obviously remained in training at Everton, in terms of when the frustration would have been building for him, in terms of not playing and not getting any game time, but the dedication he's shown to obviously knuckle down, keep training hard, and then whatever happens, clubs change their managers, and he's got the chance to be ready. But that's down to his dedication and professionalism, that he was ready to take that chance, and has not looked back since. And he's in a fantastic position at his club now, where he's nailed that spot for himself. He'll have someone coming back fairly soon. I think to fight for that position too. So no, look, but it's brilliant to see, and the more players we have playing week in, week out, as I mentioned, Raf, in terms of ideally, yeah, at the highest level they can possibly play at, because I think that will just make a difference for us mentally and physically to win those tight games.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I think that someone is Seamus Coleman, of course, who's obviously made that position his home for Ireland in terms of right back. But in terms of the possibilities that Jake's, I suppose that position that he's taken up now opens up both for himself internationally and then Ireland as well in terms of the depth you have in that position. What does it do for us?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing is you have a hopefully the more people after we have playing and fully confident and coming into squads um playing at that level, as I mentioned, will be the key for us being successful, I think, because you're playing their decisions are quicker. Everything about what they do on the pitch is quicker, sharper, and it's just going to help us in the long run. And whatever the manager decides in terms of the squad's final selection and the team final selection, the more players we have playing competitively make a huge difference for us.
Yeah, and then the centre back partnership you'd kind of settled on in November was Liam Scales as that kind of left footer, and then Nathan Collins on the other side. But of course, you put Nathan Collins in midfield in the first half of that England game, and I think it's a position that you took up as well, where I think you partnered Darren Gibson. I think it was a 2-0 win over Arsenal in the FA Cup game, I think as well. So again, you've that understanding of how to adapt to that position. How do you feel Nathan got on, and in terms of the future? Whether it's against Bulgaria and maybe the away game or further down the line, is it something that you feel like you will experiment with again?
Look, when you take everything in isolation and every individual games for large spells, I'm sure the manager will speak about it as well in terms of well, we were more than happy. We were more than happy with obviously what Nathan how he adapted to it and how he coped with it. And obviously you see how Nathan has maintained his performance levels for his club. Look, you'll have no worries in that sense about the type of professional and most importantly the ability that Nathan has as well to cope with these changes or whatever is needed. But I think it's definitely a case of there was lots of positives at different stages. We know the result. Obviously, you can't. I think, like the manager said, you can't have actual, I'd say, a positive in terms of when you have a result like that. But at different stages in the first half, we know that the ideas that we were looking for were coming across very well, and the team adapted to it brilliantly. And that may be a case of if we need and when we need to do it, we can do it with the players we have. But look,
Yeah,
for example, when you see Raf, not only that, the younger players that are kind of pushing. Um, I'm saying Nathan's even so young as well, but the competition for places, we need that competition. We need that competition all over the pitch, and then it'll just make it that much harder then for the manager to pick provisional squads, to pick teams, but also ultimately it'll lead to us being a lot more competitive in these games.
yeah, and even I suppose someone like Andrew Moore and quite young, I think he's only been capped the once so far, but him playing in a deeper
Mm.
position for Stoke at times, that opens up again another world of possibilities.
Yeah, I was down watching Stoke not too long ago, and Stoke Middlesbrough, obviously. Finn Azad had Finn had a very good game that evening, and he's obviously back in form for his club. But I think Andy, in fairness to him, has kind of stood out for for a team that have obviously had a tough season. Stoke have obviously changed their manager, but Andy has remained in position, and he's I think behind the scenes they're very happy with him in terms of what he's producing on the pitch, but also the type of character he is around the place too. So hopefully that continues for Andy.
Yeah, and I suppose a final point, if we go back to about this time last year when you were about to take on the job in terms of the interim role, imagine a hugely proud thing for you and your family and everything you'd already achieved as a player as well. You were, I suppose, fair to say you were being constantly badgered about whether A, you wanted the job or, or what you knew about the process. Did you find that sort of frustrating at the time that you were dealing with that, whereas you're trying to at the same time focus on trying to manage the team?
No, I didn't. It was one of them. I kind of because I was kept well in the loop from people behind the scenes in the FAI what was going on. But obviously you can't say these things publicly. So it was just obviously everyone else in around it was obviously trying to make. I was fully comfortable with what was going on because I was in good communication with everyone behind the scenes and well aware that what was going on with Heimir in the background as well.
Also, you were very much in the loop because the
Not
thing,
in terms of not in
not in
terms
terms
of
of
the player, the person, not in
yeah.
terms of the person, but in terms of
Also,
an individual, an individual.
so you knew, for example, coming up to April, where I think the announcement was supposed to be made but got pushed back, that they have identified someone, and it's known.
Exactly.
I suppose at the same time, then, like you've been working with Hamer for quite a while now, and you've kind of gotten used to him. And going back to the theme of watching things together, in the dugout, let's go back to like a game like Helsinki, which was, I suppose, a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but with a happy ending. What's he like in the dugout?
A great calmness. People would say I'm calm, but he's very cool. He's very calm, and I suppose that comes with the experience he's gained, the amount of games he's managed, obviously at international level, been involved successfully with teams. So that would be a huge thing, and also just the understanding of taking the advice on board from your staff, whether it be myself or Paddy, or obviously Gummy, the goalie coach as well. And then he has a real calmness about how he goes about it. So no, it's really cool to see in terms of how he approaches it.
Yeah, and I suppose is it a thing of also like daily contact, like at this stage, like I mean, are you on the blower to him in the next wee while, or tomorrow or whatever it is, and especially now that it's kind of ramping up towards the first game against Bulgaria.
Yeah, we're going to more games at the weekend together. I'll be over in Dublin for a couple of days with him, and then the following week as well too. So, yeah, look, there's constant contact, but also, look, you know that that that's a natural thing that a relationship will develop over time.
All right, very good. Well, thanks, John. And I suppose a reminder again that you were part of the Heineken 0.0 campaign, which set out to prove that sport is best watched together. But of course, as we said, you did draw the short straw in terms of like you were all by yourself. But at the same
Oh, it's
time,
definitely
yeah, it's all in the name of science anyway. So look, thanks very much for your
exactly.
time, and best of luck against Bulgaria.
Thanks, Raf.
All right, that is Ireland assistant manager John O'Shea there speaking to me last Tuesday. Since then, there have been a few developments. Sammy Smodics has been ruled out of the Bulgaria tie. Shamrock Rovers defender Josh Honohan has been linked with a call-up, further underlined by comments made by Heimir Hallgrimsson on Friday's Late Late Show. And Bulgaria's manager Ilyan Ilyev submitted his resignation just after I finished chatting to John. Anyway, I'm joined now by former Ireland winger Keith Treacy and ex-Shamrock Rovers and Dundalk midfielder Richie Towell. Lads, how are you? Good stuff.
Having us.
Yeah, now we're going to continue on the team of the national team rather than jumping straight to the League of Ireland first. Obviously, there's quite a lot of interesting things to come this week with the squad being named, and potentially a lot of new faces as well, especially first with the provisional squad and then once it gets whittled down as well. And I suppose, Keith, something that I spoke to John O'Shea about was the striker pecking order, and we've seen Troy Parrott doing brilliantly at AZ Alkmaar, and then also, Adam Ida has been doing okay for Celtic as well, has been getting his fair share of goals, including in the Champions League. And then you have Sammy Smodics out, and also Evan Ferguson not necessarily getting a huge amount of game time as of yet with West Ham. Like, how do you see that dilemma in terms of who should get the jersey at this stage for the Bulgaria ties?
It's very difficult. It's one of the questions I can't wait to see answered. There's a whole host of questions. I think with Jake O'Brien playing so well at Everton as well, you're thinking, is he going to be shoehorned in at right back? Is Seamus Coleman going to come in? I know David Moyes has spoke about being open to let him go, even though he hasn't played a lot of football. But look, I think if I'm Troy Parrott, I'm knocking on the gaffer's door. As soon as I come into camp, I'm telling him, I'm assuming I'm number one here. I'm in great form. 12 goals in 24 games. He's playing Europa League football, playing against Spurs. He scored against Galatasaray. He had a big part to play in the goal they scored against Spurs as well. So I would imagine Troy is thinking in his own head that he is the number one. But I'm sure Adam Ida is thinking, look, the standard of football I'm playing in the Champions League with 3 Champions League goals, 2 of them came against Aston Villa, and he's played a big chunk of football against Bayern Munich as well. So Adam will feel that maybe he's there as well. And look, Evan is the one that has all the potential. Evan is the younger one of the lot, and he's the one that's looked really good at Brighton. And we see him developing, and we look at where Evan could go, and we think, well, Evan should be the number one striker for Ireland. At this moment in time, I think it has to be Troy Parrott, because if it's not Troy now, when is it ever going to be Troy? And look, I think he's bided his time really well. And even when Robbie Keane's team played against AZ Alkmaar, the sound bites coming out of Robbie after it were that Ireland don't use Troy Parrott enough. And look, if we have a legend of the game, our all-time leading goal scorer, maybe we should listen to him. And this is not just someone out on a wing and a prayer saying, I throw him in there because Robbie said he's good. He's doing the business at AZ Alkmaar. So why not? I think he has to be number one at the minute. But I think long term, we're all looking at Evan Ferguson to be the answer. But right here, right now, as the Bulgaria game is looming, I think it has to be Troy's.
Yeah, and obviously there's going to be a lot of new faces in the squad, Richie, and you've been in that situation before. I think back 2018 when you were with Rotherham United when you got called up. I think it was the same period. It was October 2018, so it was around the same time there was that Declan Rice, Willie Won't-he thing, and we know how that sort of played out. But when before you got called up, did you have an inkling you were sort of on the radar at that stage, and how does that sort of work?
Yeah, I kind of had an inkling. Obviously, I was playing at championship level, and when you're kind of playing at championship level, you always think, I might have an opportunity here. We had actually played against Derby County, against Frank Lampard's team, and I played really well. I think Martin might have been at the game. So I ended up getting called into it. Through that way, I ended up picking up a knee injury then just before that, and I didn't actually get called up into the final squad. So I was absolutely devastated about that, I was. But I think, as you said, there's maybe a possibility of a couple of League of Ireland lads now getting called up, and I think it'd be great for the league. But you'd like to think that he's not just doing it just to tick a couple of boxes, because he's either coming under a bit of scrutiny over the last couple of weeks with the comments that he's made. So you'd like to think that he's not just throwing the names in there just to keep everybody happy, because to be fair, the likes of Josh Honohan, players like that, like they actually probably deserve to be on merit. Like when you see the performances that he's been putting in the Europa League, Conference League, like it's been like of a really elite level it has. So you'd like to think that he has a slight chance, but he's up against lads that the likes of, like as Keith Treacy just referenced Jake O'Brien, like he's playing every week now in the Premier League. So when you throw that into the mix, realistically, is he going to get a call up? Probably not. Like, so yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Ireland manager does.
Yeah, before we listen to Heimir, in terms of the attributes, and you've trained with Josh Honohan over the last year or so, like what attributes does he bring to the table that you feel make him at least a candidate to be part of a national team squad?
I think you can see his physical attributes straight away. He's 6 foot. He's probably about 85, 90 kilos, so he's well made. I know personally he works really, really hard in the gym. He works really hard on the pitch. So you would like to see that being rewarded. Obviously, backing that up with his performances, because I think even against Chelsea, you see the performances that he puts in against Chelsea. He was brilliant on the day. And then the whole way throughout the campaign, he was playing at an elite level, he was. And obviously, he can only play against what he's put in front of. Do you know what I mean? So he's done really well in all the games that I've been a part of the squads with him. And then since I've been watching it from the start of this season onwards, he's done really well as well. So you would love to see him get that opportunity, because sometimes it happens where players are doing really well in the League of Ireland. They don't get a call up because people are afraid of the level that they're playing at. They get a move to England, and a week or two later they're called into a squad, as if that week or two they've gone from here up to the elite level. So I think you see with the likes of Liam Scales, he was playing for Shamrock Rovers, never had a chance of getting called into any of the squads, goes over, plays for Celtic. He's absolutely outstanding. You see him in the Champions League. He's been incredible, and he gets his call-ups, and rightly so. And you'd just like to see that they can actually get called up before they have to make that jump across the water.
Yeah, because it's interesting you mentioned Liam Scales, because I kind of looked back at that in terms of potentially if it's a bone of contention for players who have been based in the league. And he was playing for Shamrock Rovers, as he said, through 2021, and then he gets the move to Celtic in the August of that year, and he gets the call up to Ireland pretty much within a month, I think, or thereabouts of leaving Shamrock Rovers. I'm not sure he would have fundamentally changed as a player in the space of a couple of weeks, and obviously going back to Daryl Horgan, who you would have played with as well back at Dundalk, he did get called up while he was at Dundalk, but where he won his first cap was actually when he'd moved across to the UK. Like, is that something within dressing rooms here in the League of Ireland that does get talked about, that is a bit of a bone of contention, or is it something that's just sort of accepted that that's just the way things are?
unfortunately, it probably is something that's just accepted. But I think you see nowadays with the likes of Shamrock Rovers getting to the latter stages of the Europa Conference League, that people actually take a little step back and realise, now these lads can actually mix it with the top teams. Like, you probably see the likes of Molde, they probably littered with internationals in their team, and then you have the likes of Josh Honohan who's going up against them, and he's one of the best players on the park. Do you know what I mean, Raf? So yeah, like, unfortunately, it is probably something that we accept, and it's probably something that we shouldn't accept. That's why we would like to see more League of Ireland players getting that call up, because I'm sure if they do get the call up, like, I have no doubt if Josh gets a call up and plays against Bulgaria, I have no doubt that he will slot in there, and people wouldn't even blink an eyelid to think that, oh, that's a League of Ireland player playing. Now they'll just see that he's playing at an elite level and he's well capable of it.
Yeah, and Heimir Hallgrimsson addressed those comments on Friday's Late Late Show. Patrick Keelty put the question to him, and here is how he responded.
Well, you mentioned in there the League of Ireland. I mean, Heimir, you said that if young players in the League of Ireland want to really progress their careers, they kind of need to leave the League of Ireland. Do you still believe that?
I didn't say that, no.
No?
But the thing is, the League of Ireland is improving drastically. Last year was really good for the League of Ireland. I think it's a positive spiral going on. At the moment, we have two guys that played with Shamrock in our preliminary squad for the national team. So I would contradict myself if I say that you need to be somewhere else. But of course, we need to improve, and I think automatically with the Brexit that more players will stay here, and especially the younger players will get their first caps.
Yeah, just explain that. So because of Brexit, Irish players are staying here more rather than moving to academies in England. They can't go until 18 years old to England. So it makes it at least easier for us here to keep them in the league, and hopefully the players that will be playing will be younger here. So and last year we had Shamrock go a long distance in the Conference League. So I think that kind of creates a positive spiral. So it gets interest. You know, players will always get the biggest interest. The coach will get an interest in what he's doing, and also the club. So the clubs here probably are looking at Shamrock. What did they do good? And that will just help things to get better here. So you're going to be looking at maybe more League of Ireland players for the squad in the future?
Yeah, we're always looking. So yeah.
So that is Heimir Hallgrimsson there. We'll forgive him the use of just Shamrock on its own without the Rovers bit attached as well. I know that was a bone of contention as well with people online with some of the UK broadcasters during the European run there. But Keith, obviously, he mentions there that there's a couple of players that would be coming into the provisional squad at this stage. Some of the names that have been mentioned, like Johnny Kenny isn't at Shamrock Rovers at the moment. Of course, he's back at Celtic, but he's one that's actually been linked with. I think David Sneyd reported that in the 42. And then Dylan Watts is another who's been in and around it. But who would you be looking at aside from Josh Honohan, who you feel would have a chance?
I'm not too sure, Raf. I mean, like, I take everything that Heimir has said on board. I take what Richie is saying on board as well. But when you're bringing these lads in, it does feel like a little bit of a token gesture, because we're playing Bulgaria in a playoff. These aren't friendlies. These are really, really important games. And if there was a fella playing in League One, or a fella playing in the Championship, or even a fella playing in the Premier League, you wouldn't be swaying towards throwing them into this game, because they've never been in this deep water before. International football is a totally different kettle of fish to any other league football there is. So I always think there's an element of risk. If somebody's going and setting the Premier League on fire, then of course you say, look, I think he'll be okay in this water. But lads that are going and playing in the Championship, like, I'm doing my homework on Abankwah. He's played 10 games this season in the Championship. He's 8 Serie A games behind him. And people are saying, get him in there. You're like, there has to be a bar here. There has to be, look, you need 50 appearances in the Championship, or, 50 club games before we decide we're going to throw you in. But in terms of bringing lads in and letting them get a flavour for it, let them get the taste of how you prepare for these big games, to feeling in and around hotels, getting police escorts to stadiums, all these little things feel different on the day. So I'd have no problem with bringing the likes of a Johnny Kenny, whoever from Shamrock Rovers, a couple of boys from Pats, whoever the names may be. But in terms of being viable options to play in these big games, I don't think we're quite there yet. And don't get me wrong, Raf, I love the League of Ireland. Every Friday night now I'm buzzing for the game to go. I think the standard is getting better every time. But in terms of international football, I don't think so. And the likes of Farouja at Barnsley, I know he's not playing every minute of every game, but you would imagine he's higher up the list than certain people in the League of Ireland. And that's just the way it is, because unfortunately, when you've got a Barnsley behind your name, it holds a little bit more weight than a Shamrock Rovers or the St. Pat's. And what Rovers have done this season in Europe shouldn't be dampened down. It's been absolutely exceptional. But in the other breath, you can look at what they've done in the league and gone, a lot of them games haven't been great, and a lot of the games they didn't turn up in. So you can't just take the good and ignore the bad, because there's been a lot of that from Shamrock Rovers players over the last 12 months, although in Europe they're absolutely trailblazing. So look, I don't know, Raf. You can bring whoever you like in to come in and train, but in terms of viable options, I'm not sure about starting and actually breaking into the squad.
Yeah, and then you mentioned James Abankwah, who, of course, as you said, 10 games for Watford in the last wee while since moving from Udinese, where he'd had a few cameos, 6 cameos before obviously those two clubs have a ownership relationship as well. But the other one at Watford as well is Rocco Vata, who's, like James Abankwah, done very well for the Ireland under-21s under Crawford in the last in that sort of last European campaign. Now, he's had a lot more game time at Watford. Now it's reduced a little bit in recent times, with 4 goals and 3 assists in 27 games in all competitions. Have you seen much of him, and do you feel he's ready for the step up? Because again, like David Snade said, those two, Vata and Abankwah, look like they're going to be called up.
Yeah, look, again, call him up. I've no problem, but from what I've seen of Rocco Vata, I really like him. He's only 19 years of age. He's probably a little bit lightweight, but what 19-year-old isn't lightweight in modern times? I'm not sure how the Smodics injury is. I know he played a cameo against Manchester United for Ipswich. Benny is obviously out. I've no problem putting him in there, but he's still very, very raw. He's one to watch, and when these lads do well in the Championship, these young lads do well. And as you say, Rafa, he's come out of the team the last couple of weeks. He's only had a few minutes here or there, but generally he has been playing. I would give him a pat on the back, bring him in and train, but I would say, look, just get a feel. Go and have a look at if Sammy Smodics is in the squad. Go and have a look at how Sammy Smodics prepares himself for games. Go and have a look at how Adam Ida, how Evan Ferguson, how Troy Parrott, how they go about it, and just take the best parts of all them lads and go and learn. Because when I first broke into the Irish team, my first cap was actually a friendly against Argentina, so I was a little bit lucky that there wasn't any, there wasn't 3 points on offer, so I managed to make me debut the first time I came in. But I was there and I was just trying to take bits out of all the best players around me. What does Robbie Keane eat before the big game? How does Damien Duff go about a week out before a game? And I just thought, well, Duffer likes to sleep and Robbie Keane has a double espresso before a kickoff. They were the little things I took out from it. So I would always bring these lads in and I'd pat them on the back and say, we are keeping an eye on you. We think we're brilliant, but these are big, big games. And modern international football, you don't get a lot of friendlies, so we will have to play them at some point. But in terms of Rocco Vata, like, he can play anywhere across the front line, he'd be brilliant. But when you look at our front line, if Smodics is available, Troy Parrott, you would imagine, will start as well. And look, I don't know if we'll go to a 2 up front where we have 3. I'm not too sure, but these lads, the 2 lads at Watford, deserve a pat on the back, come in and train. But in terms of starting, I'm not too sure, because up front we're not too bad. Defensively, we're fairly solid. It's the middle of the pitch where we're really, really struggling.
Yeah, and we'll react to the squad itself on next Tuesday's episode. And as is now tradition on this podcast, ahead of international matches, I'll be speaking to a journalist from the opposition nation. So we'll be joined by someone from Bulgaria to get a real insight into players to watch and also why Bulgaria have declined so badly since their 1990s pomp when Hristo Stoichkov and the lads ruled the roost. Now we're going to turn our attentions to the League of Ireland itself and some very intriguing results over Friday night, and one of those being Shamrock Rovers getting back to winning ways and getting their first win of the season, beating Pats 1-0. Now, before we discuss this, let's listen to Stephen Bradley and Stephen Kenny, who will both speaking to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards.
Stephen, congratulations. A very important victory, I think, in the context of how the season has started.
Yeah, it was. I've been saying that I like large aspects of what we're doing, and that wasn't a deflection. I wasn't hiding behind the results. Weren't good, but the performances were there, and I knew we were just there. And the players showed that tonight. I thought we deserved to win the game. I thought we were pretty comfortable in the end, to be honest.
Particularly against this opponent last year, St. Pat's had the better of Shamrock Rovers over the season.
Yeah, but if you look in Richmond, where the game should be outside, and we end up losing on 2 set plays late on. The game here, they were very good and won the game, but we were off it. We were at having a heavy schedule. We didn't change it, and how we tried to press them was a little bit off, and they punished us. But like I said, tonight we showed our quality and our character.
It was an evenly contested game. I felt, both teams played a lot of good football in the game, and a lot of attempts at goal, but clear-cut chances, real clear-cut ones were not that many. I think obviously Mason Mealy hitting the bar right at that, which had a point blank header, was a turning point. We had a great chance when it was played through to Aidan Keane, 1-on-1. The keeper just managed to nick it.
He was in such scoring form as well. You'd have backed your house on him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think. And then the goal, we were disappointed with the goal. Obviously, it's a very good goal from Danny Grant's point of view, but we're disappointed how we'd probably, he ran so far and obviously got a nick off Joe Redmond, and that didn't help Joseph and Ang then. But it was a good goal from their point of view. But I thought Aidan got a goal as well. I thought he, great effort. That looked like, we equalised, but wasn't quite it. I think a couple of penalty appeals that were close. I've reviewed them. I think so disappointed to lose. As you say, we had a good week, 6 points, and then very close to winning that game and just kicking ourselves really.
All right, so that is Pat's manager Stephen Kenny, and before that Stephen Bradley of Shamrock Rovers. And Richie, overall, we'll go through everything they've kind of said there, because obviously it kind of covers pretty much the main aspects of the match. But the Rovers' performance overall, what did you make of it? Obviously the win is the most important thing from their point of view, but their overall performance.
Do you know what? It was a very average performance by both sides, Raf. There was not very many clear-cut chances. Even the goal that Danny Grant scored, listen, it's a great solo goal from his point of view, but Tom Gavotsky's got to take him down. They can just stop at a source. That's kind of like what the dark art of football is. As soon as your team's on the back foot and they're breaking, you have to take them down there. So it was very avoidable. You obviously had Mason Mealy hit the crossbar just on the stroke at half-time. Aaron Green had a little chip effort that went over the bar. He was very unlucky with Aidan Keane, probably with the goal scoring form he's in, probably should have scored. But on the night there was very few chances, and the game kind of lacked any quality it did. And you could see that even with the managers after the game, you could see both of them were kind of just happy with what had happened during the game. And it was a bit of a weird night. It was. I obviously went up to the game myself. I did, and you could see it was on the back of a Monday-Friday game, because there didn't seem to be that real energy from either side. And like I said, there was no real quality from either side either. So it was a bit of a disappointing game. But most importantly, Shamrock Rovers would be absolutely delighted to have got the win, because it was something that they really needed.
Yeah, and one of the things Richie mentioned there, Keith, was the Mason Mealy header that went off the crossbar from a sort of point blank range from a corner. But it's interesting, Pat's definitely seemed to be looking to exploit what seemed to be a perceived vulnerability for Rovers from set pieces.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Once people seem to smell that way, they're not great at set pieces, people put all sorts of weight behind them. But I think that should be a great starting point for any team, even if they don't smell that vulnerability. I mean, the one that Arsenal do, Pats have started to do as well, where they start right on the edge of the 6-yard box at the back, and before the ball comes in, they all rush into the 6-yard box, and it's just absolute mayhem, and nobody seems to be able to deal with it. But I think what Stephen Kenny is saying is right. It was a very, very tight game, and Richie's spot on as well. The quality was quite low from both teams. I think the biggest talking point for me was, I thought Mulroney could have been easily sent off, Raf. The first dive was a dive. It was really, really poor, and he deserved the yellow card. And then a little bit into the second half, he drives into the box again and just falls over. And the referee stared at him as if to say, "You're a lucky boy here," because he was half thinking with it. He fell over in the box. It definitely wasn't a penalty. There was very, very little contact, and the contact that was there, Mulroney initiates. So if he'd have been sent off for it, he would have had only himself to blame. And the referee, I think, did him a big, big favour, looking at him and thinking, that's your last one now. So he could have easily went the Danny Grant goal. It's again, Richie's spot on. When he goes past Grugowski, you've got to take him down. After that, Bagley and Redmond just look at him, and then I think it's Redmond decides to go, and it gets the deflection and goes in. It's just those little split-second decisions of when to go and when not to go. But yeah, the Keane one, the Forrester pass into Keane, Ed McGinty does really, really well, but Keane's first touch is just that little bit loose, and again, you'd have put your mortgage on him, as Tony said in the interview, to put it away. But it wasn't full of great quality. But what Shamrock Rovers did really well, we're speaking about Josh Honohan doing so well. Mulroney and El Bouzebi for Pats were really, really quiet on the night, and that goes down to the Shamrock Rovers fullbacks doing really well. I know it was highlighted, I think it was Conan Bourne on Virgin that highlighted it. Jamie Lennon is a bit of a miss to this Pats team, and it's not just what Jamie Lennon brings to the team in terms of smelling that bit of danger and just winning the ball back for St. Pat's. What he allows Chris Forrester to do is just be off the leash. I'll go and do all the dirty donkey work, Chris. You do the opposite of that. And at the minute, I'm not sure who's going to do the donkey work between Bagley and Forrester. Very talented boys, but when Jamie Lennon is in there, he knows his role, and Chris Forrester knows his role. So I think the Pats will be chomping at the bit to get Jamie Lennon back. But I've tipped them to win the league, Raf, and it's been a fairly average start from them, given how well they finished the end of last season. But look, it's very, very early. I mean, it's literally every game now we're assessing people's title credentials. I think we have to wait for the first round of games till things settle down a bit, and then we can start looking a bit deeper into things.
Yeah, and also the other, the penalty incident at the end as well that got waved away. So the Pico one on Soyberg. What did you make of that, Keith?
Nah, I didn't think so. I thought it would have been soft. I think Pats were just playing the game towards the end, put the ref under a bit of pressure, see if he does something. I wasn't convinced by it. And look, I wouldn't ever throw this at the referee, but it's the most human thing in the world. If you've had a winger that's thrown himself on the ground at every available opportunity, and then you've got one that maybe is, maybe isn't, you go away out of that. You've been chancing your arm all night. So I didn't think it was a penalty myself, Raf, but again, if I was Stephen Kenny, look, I'm win at all costs. I know Owen Doyle was saying it in studio at Virgin, but let's not forget, it wasn't long ago that diving was called cheating. It is cheating, and then it got to a point where we just decided if you can't beat them, join them, and now everybody's at it. But it's not something I like to see. And as a winger, look, I've threw myself on the ground many a time, but there's got to be contact. It gets very, very embarrassing. And yeah, Mulroney's a very, very lucky boy.
Yeah.
It says there, if there's a bit of contact, well, then you're within your rights to go down. If you feel any sort of contact, like even the one that people are debating, it's a dubious whether it's penalty or not against Pico Lopez, he has his hands on his back, and you can see, right, there is a bit of intention there. That's where the point becomes a bit dubious. But Mulroney's one that's embarrassing is like it's really poor. Like both of them, like he's obviously got booked for the first one. The refs should have just sent him off. He should have, because if he sends him off, I guarantee it nips it in the bud for the rest of the season. He's not going to go out next week and throw himself on the floor. I can guarantee you that. Like, so in that sense, it's a little bit disappointing that he did get away with it, because like what Keith says, you don't really like to see that in the game of football. And as I said, if there's contact there and it's minimal and you go down, the contact's still there.
Yeah, and just one final point on this game as well, because we're just looking at the system. So Pat's playing sort of 4-4-2, Richie, and Shamrock Rovers sort of playing the system that they've always played, sort of that box midfield with a couple of players in behind the striker. Like in your time with Rovers, like playing that system, what's the sort of kryptonite for it, or the system that you always found most difficult to sort of play against, whether it was defensively or from an attacking point of view?
Yeah, listen, Shamrock Rovers are always going to play that system. It's actually, when I first signed, I thought we would have been better off going to a 4-4-2, and I politely knocked on the door to speak with the manager to ask him about that, and he politely told me to close the door and get out that way. Playing three at the back. So yeah, listen, Shamrock Rovers aren't gonna turn away from that. I think St. Pat's are a little bit limited with the midfield options that they have. I'm sure going against Shamrock Rovers, they would have loved to have a Jamie Lennon in there like that, so they could leave Bagley, Chris Forrester off the leash to let them go and get at Shamrock Rovers. But they were probably a little bit limited in that sense. But at the same time, Stephen Kenny's probably trying to get Aidan Keane, who's in great form, and Mason Mealy on the pitch at the same time. So Listen, I think formations are what they are. I think the hardest game you're ever going to get is the quality of opposition you come up against. So it doesn't really matter what formation you're playing. If you're coming up against top quality players that know the system inside out, that's when you're going to get a real game. Like.
Yeah, and Shamrock Rovers have Drogheda United at Sullivan and Lamb Park on Friday. And Drogheda United, and this is for their supporters as well, will be delighted because they are sitting pretty at the top of the table after a 1-0 win at reigning champions Shelbourne on Friday night. And first, Keith, I suppose we can't not talk about the Warren Davis goal. I think that's where it starts. But there's like two sides to this, I think, which makes it brilliant. It's not just the skill and the actual finish. It's the bit before that, I think, that makes it an even better goal.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Raf. I would love to show this to kids. The finish is unbelievable. It's a top class finish. He leaves Cairns for dead with the finish, but the harassing and the hounding to win the ball back, and that's in the first couple of minutes of the game. From a Shelbourne point of view, I'm sure Damien Duff is thinking, don't make a mistake early doors. Don't let Drogheda grow into the game. You know, I'd have just chipped that down to the channel and said, look, we'll deal with it from there. But what Warren Davis does is brilliant. He goes and wins the ball back. And once he wins it, he can be forgiven for just lumping it into the box and saying, well, I've done my job now. Somebody else go and do something else. But he stays on a little nutmeg on Harry Wood. And then the finish, as I say, is absolutely brilliant. So often you see players do really well, win the ball back, and then there's a rush of blood to the head because they're still 100 miles an hour pressing to win the ball back. You would have forgiven him for just smashing it with his laces and saying, let's see what I can get for that. But inside of the boot, little bit of culture on it. It was absolutely brilliant. But inside 5 minutes, they go 1-0 up. That was a massive goal for me. McElroy missed a couple of chances from a Shelbourne point of view. Shells, I know people are saying, will they struggle for goals this season? Well, Odebeko, Boyd, Harry Wood, they did have an awful lot of chances as well. Drogheda defended well. But Drogheda 11 points from 15. And I have to be honest, Raf, Drogheda are my old club, but I was looking at them thinking it'd be them and Sligo maybe this year who you would imagine will be propping up the league for most of it. They've been absolutely outstanding. And Kevin Doherty, the Drogheda manager beforehand, was telling everybody that would listen, we have a really good squad here with the FAI Cup holders. We're not just going to go down without a fight. And it's been brilliant. And I think this is why everybody loves the League of Ireland. You know, you look at the top and you think Shelbourne, Rovers, Pats, whoever it might be. Look down the bottom. We've absolutely no idea. But 11 points from 15, Raf. Drogheda have only conceded 1 goal in the 5 games. They've kept 4 clean sheets. And you could be forgiven for saying, oh, well, maybe it was the lower clubs. Saying Pats, Sligo, Bows and Shells, they've kept clean sheets against. If Drogheda keep this up, it'll be one of the stories of the season. But what an unbelievable start. If this was any other club, Raf, any of the title contenders, we'd be saying an unbelievable start. These are the favourites for the league now. The fact that it's Drogheda, we're only extending it to, it's a brilliant start. It's been unbelievable stuff for them. Drogheda and Kevin Doherty in particular deserve a big pat on the back.
Yeah, as Keith mentioned, a few stats there, Richie. I think they just even underline it more. So Shells had, and I'm not even sure if this stat is completely accurate, but 79% possession, which is a crazy number, but only 2 shots on target to Drogheda's 4. So it just shows how well drilled they are, and also how much intent they have at the other end as well. Because Alua had a couple of chances as well, possibly to double it.
Yeah, listen, Drogheda have done incredible. They have, like that, they limit Shelbourne at home to 2 shots on target. And then it did on transition. It looked like they could go up the other end and score as well. Obviously, Shelbourne had the lion's share of possession, but Drogheda would have been expecting that before the game. So they would have been very, very comfortable in their shape and then expecting to catch Shelbourne on the break. Obviously, getting the early goal really was a kick in the teeth for Shelbourne. It was, and you could see it was always going to be a struggle to get back into the game from them for them. But just going back to the start that Drogheda have actually had, it was something similar to when I was at Dundalk. We had just played up through a relegation playoff, and then we ended up going up and finishing second in the league. That we were one of the favourites to get relegated as well. We were. So the sky's the limit for Drogheda at the moment. If, as Keith said, 4 clean sheets and playing against top sides, like if they continue that form, nobody's going to want to play against them, especially going to Drogheda's home stadium. It's real tight, compact. The atmosphere just be really good, so it's going to be a really difficult game for whoever goes there. But I think Kevin Doherty deserves a lot of credit for the way he's set up his team, because he's obviously on quite a minimal budget there, and what he's getting out of his players is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, one of the teams they've beaten this season, of course, has been Bohemians, but Bohs got back on track with a 3-0 win away at Waterford. And Richie, I suppose, building up to this game, the focus would have been on Waterford, who had themselves had a brilliant start. Bohs' poor form on top of it would have been a preview talking point as well. And then Lys Mousset's sort of I suppose it's that wild card signing where the jury has been out on him. That had been a lot of the build up. And then up steps Colin Whelan, who granted 2 of the goals are from penalties, but that first strike, he's kind of announced himself. And I think maybe that maybe pushes away the question of what's in the forward line at the moment.
Yeah, do you know what? Alan Reynolds would be absolutely delighted to go away from home against anybody and get a 3-0 win, clean sheet, 3 goals. And for more importantly, for your striker to get a hat-trick, because I think there was a lot of talk about Lys Mousset coming with the big price tag that he'd had previously when he went to Sheffield United. So everybody kind of forgot about Colin Whelan a little bit, but I'm telling you now, they're not going to forget about him after the weekend t-shirts that they're having. So for him to get a hat-trick, hopefully that will help him grow in confidence, because as everybody knows, a striker in football, if they're confident, they're a dangerous person to play against. So he'll be really looking to build on that. And as we said, we want to see, like, as hard as it is for me to say, we want to see Bohemians challenging at the opposite end of the table. So it'd be nice to see them climb their way back up the league.
Yeah, we're all neutrals here. That's the that's the rule. But from the Waterford point of view, Keith, I mean, they've had a good start to the season, 3 wins in their opening 4, and then this setback now in the 5th round of the games. So how would you judge it from Keith Long's point of view?
I think he'll still be over the moon. He will obviously be disappointed with the game against Bohs, but when you zoom out and take the 5 games as a whole, as you say, Raf, I think he'd be absolutely delighted. And again, Waterford, I say this with absolutely no conviction. Waterford will be one of the teams that I would imagine would be flirting with the relegation tag this season. So, look, to start the way they have is absolutely brilliant. You look at Tom Lonergan, Dean McMenemy, Padraig Hammond. I think there is guaranteed goals there. Bukowski at the back. You would think they have enough there, but you do also think they're probably on a par with the teams like a Sligo, Cork. These are the teams that are going to be down the bottom of the table. So I think Keith Long's know-how at Waterford will be a big, big weapon for them. And yeah, look, that Bohs team has an awful lot of talent in it. When I seen them in the opening game against Shamrock Rovers, Dawson Devoy, Rooney, Tierney, Parsons, Morgan in the middle, and Keith Buckley coming back, I think Bohs have a really, really strong spine. So I think they're capable of giving anybody an old hiding every now and then. But the thing with Bohs is they're also capable of taking in a hiding. So look, I think Waterford will also get these odd results where they get turned over fairly handy. But on the whole, they will be largely competitive. And yeah, I think I've seen enough from Waterford in the opening 5 games to think they should be okay.
Yeah, and then also Derry City and Galway United drew 1-1. Michael Duffy's penalty ruling out Moses Dyer's opener just before half-time. And Richie, you were talking about strikers needing confidence and trying to get rid of it. Obviously, Colin Whelan has that at Bohs. On the other side of it, Liam Boyce yet to get off the mark. But like looking at a lot of the chances, he's nearly on the end of things a lot of the times. They seem to be going wide, getting crossed into the box. And again, he looks like maybe a player who just needs something to go for him. It just has to go off his backside or something to get going.
Yeah, because listen, Liam Boyce is a really good player. He is, and I think if he does get that first goal, that'll really kick him on. But I don't know whether he probably underestimated the League of Ireland a little bit coming over here to play, because I think we've all seen Derry with the signings that they've made. We all thought these are going to be real title contenders, and they're actually at the complete opposite end of the table. And obviously, it is going to take a little bit of time for them to gel. But you would have expected with senior professionals that they're at their signing that it would have gelled a lot quicker, because as we said previously, they haven't signed potential. They've signed lads who have been there and who have done it. So I don't know whether it's they haven't gelled already quick enough, or whether they're a little bit complacent and thinking that the League of Ireland is going to be easy to come back and play in, because it's not. It's a tough league. Like, lads are out scrapping every single week. You see the likes of Drogheda, like Shell, 79% possession. It's okay. It doesn't matter. They'll still scrap and fight and defend their box like their lives depend on it. So yeah, they need to get going, and they need to get going really quickly to do, because, as I said, with the players they've signed, you would expect them to be at the other end of the table.
Yeah, and the last couple of games for Galway, Keith, had been set pieces, but 2 corner kicks that had got them draws in 2 consecutive games over the Friday Monday games. But now this time it was a long throw into the box, and then Moses Dyer ends up getting on the end of it. But when it comes to set pieces, there's the delivery, but then the thing of actually making sure you do get enough set pieces. Like, you've played for a Big Sam team previously. What's the strategy in terms of trying to make sure you build up as many opportunities from throw-ins and then from corners or free kicks?
It's just about putting the ball in the right areas. What Big Sam used to always say to me was, I remember showing to the ball, going to the ball for feet when the left back had it, and he said, no, you spin into the channel, because the percentages of you chasing the ball into the channel means he might kick it out for a throw in, he might try a back pass and the goalkeeper will kick it back to us. He would hit you with all these percentages, but generally you would put the ball into decent positions and you would know 9 times out of 10 this will go out of play. But one thing you should always do when the ball does go out for a set piece, and I think Arsenal are getting better at this as well all the time, take your time, let the anticipation build, let the defenders go through everything in their head, thinking, oh, here comes Big Hickey, I have to deal with him. Don't just sprint up there, throw it into the box and get back into your position. Really let that build, because everybody knows Galway are a big, strong, physical team. As you said, Raf, corner kicks, they're absolutely dynamite from. And for 40 minutes of that first half, they were getting absolutely battered, couldn't get out of their own half. And then a long throw with flick on and Dyer pokes it home with the back stick. So set pieces are a big, big part of the game for me, and they should never, ever be shied away from. And I love the way Galway go about it. Don't have as much talent as some of the other teams, but you're never, ever going to go to Galway and say, do you know what, that was an easy 3 points. You're always going to have to work. A John Caulfield team, Ollie Horgan team, they don't give you anything for free. They scrap for absolutely everything. And as I say, that the spine of that team is really good. With Brendan Clark is an absolute League of Ireland legend these days. He's still playing. Slevin Bruder, Van Boren and Hickey through the middle, Dyer. They've got everything they need there. I think defensively they're strong. Attacking wise, I was worried about them with goals, but Hickey started really well. Dyer looks like he has a bit. So, yeah, but I think Galway will be absolutely fine. But for Derry, at the start of the season, we're all looking, thinking, what are we going to get from them? And I think was it 1 win in the first 5 games. It doesn't look the cohesive unit we expected. And what Richie's saying is right. They seem to have a lot of older heads in the building, and they've added older heads to it. And for my money, I look at the Derry team. The only one who's a threat in behind is Michael Duffy. The rest of them don't have the legs to get away from anybody, which means you can really, really condense the pitch because they can't get away from you. So a lot of the play that Derry have is in front of teams. They need that threat in behind. And as I say, when you know it's only really coming from the one player, it's easy enough to dampen down.
Yeah, and they have Sligo next on Saturday, and Sligo drew 1-1 at Cork City. But this game, Keith, was one where Cork City probably would be quite disappointed with a lot of the penalty shouts that they had turned down, and also they had some disallowed goal as well on top of it. But then on the other side of it, Sligo Rovers, a straight red card for Conor Reynolds. I don't know if you saw the challenge or what you made of it either, because he did really go in hard on Dykesdale.
He did go in really hard, and I've slowed down the replay. In real time, Raf, I looked and I went, oh, that's wild and out of control. And it was very, very aggressive. It was very, very strong. And I hate using this line, but I think a couple of years ago or 10 years ago when I was playing, that would have been a foul, and that would have been it. These days, it probably does creep into the red card, but for my money, I'm not sure if he studs her up. Like I say, I've had a couple of looks at the replay. It's very, very aggressive. He does go into it 100 miles an hour. Or I did think it was a little bit harsh in terms of a red card. The Owen Eldon header, I thought was a brilliant, brilliant header. Just helps it on into the far stick. And I would have played with Owen's father, Anthony, at Stockport years ago. It makes me feel absolutely ancient. But yeah, look, again, I look at Sligo and you're thinking, are they the ones, because they started so poorly, but then they go to Inchicore and score 3 goals, and you're thinking, could have easily got a draw if they scored a penalty, and they go and draw it against Cork away. Drawing against Cork away, I know they're only a promoted team, but that's a very, very good point from a Sligo point of view. And yeah, Owen Eldon's still only 19 years of age, so maybe he's the one that could poke his head from a Sligo point of view with the goals. And Conor Walsh made some decent saves as well. So I thought it was a good game, but as you say, Rap, I think Cork will maybe think they've left 2 points behind, and Tim Clancy's interview wasn't quite as jaw-dropping as it was last week, but still pretty good.
No, for sure. But actually, also inside news at Cork City, the club yesterday they released a statement, sorry, on Saturday, saying that their 16-year-old defender Ben Dummigan will have to retire. He'd been called up to Ireland squads up to under 17 level, so clearly a player of huge potential. And part of their statement, I'll just read here, which is on their website. At the end of January, whilst undergoing medical tests in advance of signing for Bundesliga club Hoffenheim, Ben received a diagnosis of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and the diagnosis has since been confirmed by a team of consultant cardiologists in Cork. HCM causes abnormal thickening of a part of the heart muscle, so that's hugely unfortunate for him. But I suppose best wishes to Ben Dummigan with whatever he chooses to do next. And in the first division, Dundalk's winning run is at an end. 2-2 draw against Treaty United. Now, Treaty United fought back from 2-0 down, laid on goalkeeping mistake by Peter Cherry, and the informally Devitt Malloy scoring the equaliser late on. Cove Ramblers up to second as well, as one of the former Cork City contingent, Barry Coffey, got a brace in a 5-0 win over Longford Town. And I would say Shane Griffin's free kick was well worth a watch in that game as well. And then Bray Wanderers off the pitch have also announced a partnership with Arizona-based Next Level Soccer, with one ambition for new investors being a player development pathway and a broadening of our and this is their direct quote, of our support base into the USA. So table as it reads now: Dundalk top with 10, Cove Ramblers 8, Treaty United 7, Wexford had their first defeat as well, so they're on 6, and Bray on 6 as well. Before we go though, we're going to just talk Champions League very briefly, because Atletico versus Real Madrid on RT2 and RTÉ Player at 7:30 on Wednesday. That's the second leg, with Richie Sadler and Stephen Kelly joining Peter Collins in studio. And Richie, I suppose that game is finally poised, and that's going to be a great game as well. I know Atletico lost at the weekend, but they've quite a good team of players there. And then the other game as well, somehow, I don't know how Liverpool versus PSG, which is will be on the Tuesday, is actually in Liverpool's favour going into the Anfield game. Like, it's unbelievable. But then again, I think as you were saying last week, Liverpool don't necessarily have to play well. They're just very flexible and they make tweaks. Even what happened at the weekend with Will Smallbone getting his first Premier League goal for Southampton, and then Liverpool finding a way at the other end.
Yeah, it was absolutely wild. I obviously watched the Liverpool and PSG game, and I think before the game, people were obviously raving about Liverpool, and rightly so. They've had an incredible start to the season, and they just continue to get better and better. But PSG were in an unbelievable vein of form they were, and I think going over there, it was always going to be really difficult. And I don't think people actually realised how difficult it was going to be, because PSG absolutely battered them the whole game. But Liverpool will be delighted that that's a real, like, if I've ever seen a snatch and grab, that's a real snatch and grab. And obviously going back to play in Anfield now, Champions League night, they'll be sitting a lot more comfortable now, knowing they have a little 1-0 cushion. They have their home support there, and as everyone knows, a Champions League night in Anfield, it'll be absolutely electric. And listen, I think Liverpool will go through now, obviously, even though PSG played incredibly well on the night, but it was unfortunate for them that Liverpool broke on them.
Yeah, and then I suppose finally as well, one of the other games, which is probably not going to be much of a tie now, given that Arsenal are leading 7-1 against PSV. Keith, I couldn't let you go without bringing that up. And I think, as you mentioned off air, you're trying to wean yourself off the thing of saying we, but I will allow you the courtesy of doing that today.
Look, it's great, Raf. It's brilliant that we scored 7 goals. It gave me some real hope moving forward without a centre forward, that maybe we've connected the pieces of the puzzle and we know what to do. But I can't shy away that we played Manchester United yesterday and we were absolutely awful. And we looked really blank in front of goal. Marino had 1 or 2 chances, but look, the 7-1 against PSV was brilliant. But the one thing that stood out to me, Raf, was PSV had an XG of 1.38 and scored 1 goal. Arsenal had an XG of 1.97 and scored 7 goals. So if you look at that, I wouldn't be a big believer in XG, but when you look at a team and you have 70% possession, I do like just to throw my eye on the XG to think, well, what sort of chances are he having? Is it just possession, or are he actually banging down the door? You look at the game, PSV were almost nightmares at times, playing out from the back, getting nicked, a couple of goalkeeping errors as well. So the 7-1 is probably a little bit false, but I was delighted we scored 7 goals, absolutely over the moon. But what does it get us, Raf? It gets us through to the next round, where we either get Atletico Madrid or Real Madrid. And if we somehow get past the mighty Madrids, we've got Liverpool or PSG next. You know what I mean? It just doesn't get any easier. And if we somehow get past the Liverpool and PSG, it's either going to be an Inter or a Bayern Munich for my money in the final. So Arsenal aren't going to win the Premier League. We're out of the EFL Cup. We're out of the FA Cup. And I don't see us winning the Champions League. But, you know, is it enough to say, well, we scored 7 goals in a knockout game of the Champions League? You know, it's all happy and rosy in the garden. I'm not so sure. If Manchester City had won this Premier League title and picked it up and ran away with it as Liverpool are doing, I would have said, look, they're a different class of opposition. But the fact that it's Liverpool, the fact that it's Arne Slot's first year, feel that maybe Arsenal have just missed the trick here. I know the Odegaard injury at the start of the season was big. The Saka injury is absolutely massive. But every club has had injuries at certain points in the season. It's just the Arsenal starting 11. Once you take Saka out of there, once you take one or two others, Havertz, Jesus, the strikers in particular, we drop down in levels. And look at young Wanyeri, only 17 years of age. He's 18 later this month. He's been unbelievable. But Bukayo Saka and Ethan Wanyeri, there's a little bit of a difference for me. So, look, we're moving in the right direction. We're getting better. But when you can't go and stand on the throats of Manchester United in Old Trafford, you felt there was something there. Or I definitely felt there was something there for Arsenal. But again, without a striker, we just seem so toothless.
Yeah, and would you give Atletico a chance against Real Madrid? I know Real in this competition, there's something about them in the Champions League that sometimes doesn't make sense. But Atletico did control large portions of the game in the Bernabeu in the first leg.
Yeah, I would give Atletico half a chance. Obviously, the second leg is going to be absolutely massive. The Diaz goal, the one when he gets into the box and he looks like he's about to fall over and manages to chop the ball onto his right foot. He doesn't look like he has an angle to finish, but finds an angle to finish. It was unbelievable stuff. And do you know who I love watching? Like you look at Griezmann, Alvarez, Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, Rudiger. The person I love watching is Simeone. Diego Simeone's young fella, because I think he's just like a Diego Simeone on the pitch. He's 100 miles an hour, fiery player. Probably a little bit limited in his talent, but I think he's brilliant because I just think he knows whatever I do now, my dad's going to be in my ear when I get off this pitch. So he's 100 miles an hour. I love watching him. And, look, I back Real. I think Real will have enough class to be able to go and hurt Atletico in transition. But if they can spring up the pitch and Alvarez can score a goal like he did, I wouldn't be totally against Atletico being able to defend their way to it. But it's a difficult thing with Vinicius Junior and Mbappe, Rodrigo, Bellingham all going to be on the pitch. It's a difficult task, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did, Raf.
Yeah, so that is going to be RT2 and the RTÉ Player 7:30 on Wednesday. And as I said, Richie Sadler and Stephen Kelly joining Peter Collins in studio. But that's it for this segment of the podcast. And Richie and Keith, thanks very much for your time.
Cheers, Raf.
Thanks, mate.
Right, I'm delighted to be joined now by Shelbourne midfielder Rachel Graham and RT Sports Anthony Pyne. I hope you're both keeping well.
All good, Raf. Hope you are too.
Yeah, all good. Which is helped by the weather a little bit as well, I think. But look, Saturday marked the opening of the new Women's Premier Division season, and just going to run through the results first before getting your thoughts on these. Rachel, obviously you were involved in one of these games now. Sligo Rovers 0, Bohemians 0, Treaty United beat newcomers Waterford 2-0, and then of course the game you were involved in as well, Shamrock Rovers with a late winner 2-1 at Shelbourne, and then Athlone Town, the reigning champions, winning start 2-0 win over Wexford. Galway United breezed back with 5 goals to beat DLR Waves 5-1, and then Peamount United beat Cork City 2-0, so a solid start for them as well. And Rachel, you played 80 minutes of the Shelbourne Shamrock Rovers game, and it must be gut-wrenching just the way it ended, because the start was absolutely brilliant, and then I suppose the nature of it when you concede a winning goal in stoppage time, it's I suppose it is hard to take.
Yeah, we'd the perfect start and the worst finish. So look, it's tough to take. We obviously went 1-0 up after I think it was in the second minute, so a dream start, and then I think we created another chance in the first half that we didn't take, and I think that's ultimately the cost of the game for us. But look, I think we weren't, I wouldn't say we dominated the game, but I don't think Rovers did either. And then obviously the first goal that we conceded, the Amanda, is obviously really, really disappointed with that. It's out of character for her. And then probably, looking back now, it'd be easier to say that we probably maybe should have been a bit more clever, and, it's the opening game against a good team. Last few minutes, should we just kind of maybe being happy with a draw, but we really pushed to get that second goal. And then it ultimately cost us. Like, we left ourselves open at the back, and Rovers capitalised. So look, it's obviously a tough one to take. Look, we've been there before. We've had really tough defeats. It's not going to knock us too bad. We're back in training tonight now, so focus on Waterford from now on. But yeah, look, tough to take, but look, we'll definitely bounce back from it.
Yeah, so one of those things as well. I mean, you are pushing forward for a winner, and you're one of those clubs, as I think we've discussed, like you're either winning things or you're thereabouts. If you're not pushing forward, that's probably even worse, I suppose, than maybe the odd time that you do get caught at the end.
Yeah, like, it is probably realistically, we probably should have just maybe been happy with a draw, because the last few minutes were really, really open. And sometimes there's no, just pride in taking a draw, it's fine. But we felt we could win it. And to be fair, like, we actually probably looked like, we looked really threatening going forward. And then obviously just, they capitalised on a mistake by us. And yeah, it's a tough one to take. But like I said, it's very early days, and it's something we'll bounce back from.
Yeah, and I suppose that, as you mentioned, the really good start as well. So Kate Mooney, I think, as we've discussed, finished last season, in brilliant form, and has carried that in from the first minute. So, that's at least a positive from that point of view, that like she's off the mark, and it was within a minute. I think I think the clock went exactly a minute, and then she scored.
Yeah, look, brilliant for Kate. She has that first goal. Sometimes when a striker goes one game or two games without a goal, they start to kind of maybe doubt themselves, or their confidence gets a bit knocked. But she was straight off the mark. She was really good in the game. She'd one or two other chances that I think she probably, another day she would have taken. So look, a great start for her. And look, we played well. I wouldn't be overly worried about our performance. It's obviously just a really tough way to lose.
And what was your view of the disallowed goal?
Yeah, like, so obviously, Katie came out, and from my view, she dropped the ball and well finished it. But I think, she kind of collides with Kate a bit. And I think it's a bit 50-50, and keepers do tend to kind of get the benefit of the doubt on them once. But yeah, at the time I felt it was soft, but I think that's just when you're in the moment. If it was the other end, we probably would have been screaming for it as a foul on Amanda. But look, you can't blame these things. We can't control referees' decision. We can only control ourselves.
Yeah, and let's just listen to Shamrock Rovers manager Collie O'Neill. He was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards.
Collie, a victory in the 95th or 96th minute, are they the sweet ones?
They're always the sweet ones. They really are. Especially going behind so early, not panicking, staying in the game. We got fight. We've got hunger in these kids. And then to show the extra fitness levels and the walk rate that we had, that you have your full back in the 95th minute bombing on like that to stick it in the bottom corner. It's nice.
Tell me about conceding so early. Obviously that's never in the game plan, but to go one down after 60 seconds, that's tough.
It is tough, but there's been enough. We've great staff within Rovers, and the work that Ola has been doing with them in relation to the mental side of the game, being able to breathe, calm, play in the present moment. It all helps young girls like that, and it's got us the result today because of it.
It could have been 2 to Shelbourne. The ball in the net from Noel Murray. I thought the referee had actually signalled for a goal at that point.
So did I for a second. But once you challenge a goalkeeper like that, I think it's always they're so protected these days. You always get the free kick for it.
Talk to me about the equaliser, because again a goalkeeper involved.
Yeah, we were just talking about maybe making a substitution, that we weren't getting enough joy down this left hand side, and within 30 seconds we got down the side, got the crosses in and got a goal out of it. So we were nearly going to make a change to try and get more movement down that side.
And then the winning goal, and as you say, coming so late, but there's some fight in your team.
There is some fight in it, and even the little bit of quality there from Anya, first time ball around the corner. Yeah, probably one of the happiest results I've had in a long time.
All right, so that is Collie O'Neill, Shamrock Rovers manager, and it's Orla White, who he represents there, the performance and S&C coach at Shamrock Rovers. But Rachel, in terms of what Rovers were like to play against compared to the version that you came up against last year, where I suppose they had a bit of a setback compared to the previous year where they were in the title race, how different are they?
Well, they're obviously different personnel. They've lost a good few in the off-season, but kind of like, Collie has them really well organised, to be fair. They're really well structured. I think we just caught them really cold at the start of the game. Yeah, really, really, really good young players. Their squad, so their bench was, I didn't really recognise a lot of the players. I think they might have been under 17s, 19s, so they're probably a bit light on numbers, is maybe a concern that they have. I know they're, potentially going to make a big signing soon, so she'll obviously add a lot of quality and a lot of experience to their team. But I think, look, they're the 11 that they set out were really well organised, really good players. So I think they'll have a better season than they have had previously, and they're probably looking to challenge for the title this year.
Yeah, and it's Rusha Littlejohn, I think you were your referencing there. And Anthony, obviously she's been a big character. She's part of the Republic of Ireland national team as well, veteran of the last World Cup as well. But I think also on the other side, sort of like this kind of big character who's quite outspoken, has a lot to say, but also does quite a lot of fun stuff off the pitch as well.
Oh, listen, I think if it happens, and at the minute, I think it was Daniel MacDonald had it, didn't he? He initially reported in the Irish Independent. Don't know if Rachel has heard any more whispers in the last couple of days. If this actually happens, it would be just incredible for, like, I was trying to think of a comparable signing, because the league is full of players with underage international experience. Obviously, the likes of Anya has had such a brilliant Ireland career and stayed in the league for the vast majority of it. But for someone to come from the outside in, some of that kind of character and that kind of quality, I think maybe Heather O'Reilly, Rachel, when she came, but she wasn't there too long. I think if Rusha Littlejohn was to come into the league, it's craving more eyeballs, more column inches, and more attention. That feeds everything. It's only positive, and she would definitely help that. I mean, there's the argument that the media should be giving the league more push anyway, but it's just the way things work. You've seen it with Damien Duff in the men's Premier Division. If you have someone like her come into the division, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. So I hope it happens. I mean, I think from a player's point of view, you're thinking, wow, what would she do with that team? Because she's a fantastic footballer. I know she has the Achilles issue, but I mean, she's been playing at a high level for a very long time, and I'm sure she'd be excellent for that, particularly with young players, as you say, Raf. So let's see what the next few days brings, because I had heard a while ago that Rusha was looking at other options in England and elsewhere. So I'm sure she has a couple of different options on the table, but it would be fantastic and really exciting if she was to come here.
Yeah, and I suppose, Rachel, from your point of view, from Michelle's point of view, it'd be probably a thing. You probably don't want to see a rival getting, stronger, but at the same time, when you take the step back and you look at what it will do for the league, it will, as Anthony says, potentially huge consequences.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, you'd love to see the league grown. Obviously, you want your team to do the best, but look, I wouldn't begrudge anyone who's trying to promote the game or get the game what kind of more publicity. But as far as I've heard, it's kind of, it's done. It's just, I imagine they're waiting on international clearance at the minute. She obviously wasn't playing Saturday, but I'd expect it to kind of be announced in the next few weeks. And that's just a little birdie might have told me that one. But I think it's brilliant for the league. Like Anthony was saying, like any publicity is brilliant for us. And I do think the fact that the men's league is doing so well, and look, it's brilliant. I'm a big League of Ireland fan. It's brilliant, but I feel sometimes we get a bit lost in that because the men play Friday night, and all the media and all the coverage is about the men's game, and then we play Saturday early, so there's not much of a window where we get our own kind of time. And I think sometimes we might get a bit lost in the men's promotion. But look, credit to the men's league. It's brilliant. It's flying, and it deserves all the attention. But hopefully we can just, get a bit more for ourselves and a bit more focus on our games.
Yeah, because there is the benefit of, say, someone like Rusha, if she speaks, I think people will listen, because she was on the TalkSport podcast there the last couple of days, where she was talking about things like facilities within Ireland and things like the lack of female toilets at grounds. And again, her voice will resonate. But like for yourself, even on that issue of the facilities, like how do you feel that has changed in the time you've been in the league?
Yeah, I think, the biggest one is probably like where we're playing our matches. So I mean, Shells, like we used to play our home games in the AUL, which is, it's a training facility, and we'd be walking out to the pitch and you're walking through a car park full of people, and it just, there's no special feeling about it. It's not a good place to watch a match. And Bows would have been very similar. They played in the Oscar Trainer, which again, you're walking through a car park. There's nowhere for people to sit. DLR would have been Jackson Park, and Cork would have played in Bishopstown. And there was once or twice, we've gone to Bishopstown and we're waiting on our dressing room because the men's team were training there, and we go into the dressing room and the floor is soaking because all the men have showered, and you're trying to get changed and you can't stand on the floor. So look, that's come a long way. We're obviously talking now, Bows are in Dalymount, and the other two are in their stadium. So that's really come a huge way. And like, to be fair, facilities, toilet wise, that was never really probably an issue in League of Ireland, but it is at grassroots. And I've been that young girl who I was the only girl on a boys' team and who was getting changed on the side of a pitch. And look, I probably didn't really think too much of it at the time. I just, put my jersey on over top and took it back off. But things like that can turn girls off playing football, and it's, it could be harrowing to go up and, you're maybe conscious or whatever. So look, we don't want to be losing girls for reasons like that. And hopefully that's something that it is getting better. I know the Club Mark program is big on that. So look, it's not going to be something that's fixed overnight, but it definitely is getting better.
Yeah, and something that you mentioned, I think for the preview of the league was in terms of like Talca Park and changing the kickoff times as well for the home games. That it would be easier for supporters to come in bigger numbers if you kicked off later. Did you feel that consequence on Saturday?
Yeah, we definitely. I don't know the exact number, but it was definitely a bigger crowd than we would have had last year. Maybe close between 250, 300 possibly. But yeah, no, it was a big difference. And even for us as players, like I feel it was a nicer kickoff time. Your morning's not rushed, you're up and you can kind of take a bit of a slow morning. But yeah, no, it definitely there's a better crowd there. So hopefully as the league goes on, it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and then looking at the other games as well, so Waterford are the new kids on the block in a certain sense, and a 2-0 defeat against Treaty United. Now, some of the goals are definitely worth watching. So Katie Lawley, that the way she took her goal, where she kind of lets it bounce and then just rifles it into the net. And then you also have Isabel Flocchini as well with an excellent sort of like lofted finish as well, and Maeve Williams also for Waterford making some really good saves. But when you look at the margin of victory, and I think as we spoke about last week, I think with Maeve de Burka, the new teams coming in, it could be quite difficult that first season. That 2-0 defeat and the margin, the scoreline from a Waterford point of view, can they take some positives out of that?
Yeah, like, previously when we've seen new teams come into the league, it's sometimes the defeats can be very heavy. So it's always a worry for a new team. But like if you're looking at their team, they've players who've played in the league before. They're not all brand new to the league. Like Maeve Williams obviously played with Wexford for many years, and Danielle Burke, would have been a player for Cork, and they've, experience within the league. They're a new team, but they're not new players to the league. But I think even like, the goals that they got, they're not being like picked apart, or they're not being, their goals not getting hammered every couple of minutes. They put it up to them. Okay, it was a 2-0 defeat, but for a new team coming into the league and playing against, a more established team, it's not the worst result, and I think they can take a lot of positives out of it.
Yeah, and one of the other results, of course, that was eye-catching, of course, Athlone, the reigning champions, beating Wexford 2-0. But I was even looking at the Wexford lineup just as it came up on the screen, because it was the TG Cahir game, and you're looking at like Kylie Murphy, Ciara Rossiter, Ellen Malloy, Becky Casson, all of the sort of those first two lines of the pitch. Like there's a lot of talent there. Obviously, they have a lot of work to do to try and make the benefits of the talent they do have.
Yeah, like Kylie's obviously, a really established player in the league. She's like me and Pearl probably there from the fourth season, but I think it was a tough game for Wexford at Lone. Really dominate the first half, especially Wexford kind of struggled to get out of their own half, and then an own goal. It's an unlucky own goal, and then the second one's a great strike from Kelly Brady. But I think second half they came into it a lot more, but I think Athlone just had too much for them. But it's great to have Ellen Malloy back. She obviously went away to Sheffield, and I don't know, she just probably didn't like it, she's a bit of a homeboard maybe, which is fine, and just wants to be back enjoying football. So that's brilliant to see. And I thought Lauren Dwyer coming back on is another great name to have in the league. And Lauren's, she hasn't played in the last 2 years, I think. But Lauren's an excellent defender, excellent player. So she's obviously struggled a bit with her injuries as well. But if they can get her fit, be a big addition for them.
Yeah, and like as we spoke about last week, he played against Athlone Town in the President's Cup and beat them. And just listening to Colin Fortune before the kick-off against Wexford, he was speaking to TG Cahir's Andrew DePuer, and he was saying, they want to be slightly less direct and they want to sort of play through the thirds. It was sort of visible. It was sort of visible through the game against Wexford, particularly in those early stages as well. But did you kind of feel that when you played them as well, that they're a little bit different in terms of how they approach the game, in terms of how they want to play out from the back?
Yeah, like they would have been very direct, but look, it worked for them. It's not a bad game plan if it works. So, they've obviously lost one or two of their attacking players, so that could be possibly why they're looking to change their style of play. But they've good players in there; they're well able to play out. But I think it's really good if you can do both. Like if you can play long, if you can play direct and play out, you're really laughing. But obviously, you've seen the names missing. The Maddie Gibson and two of the others are missing for the start 11, and I know there's an issue there around visas and stuff, but they'd be huge losses for them if they can't get that sorted.
Yes, that's related sort of like work permits and student visas. It's that sort of area, isn't it?
I just heard visa. I'm not sure like the ins and outs, but I know if Maggie Pierce was staying on for us for a third year, the visa was proven to be quite difficult. So could be something along those lines. But yeah, look, there'll be big losses if they can't get that sorted. Especially the transfer window's not going to open till the summer, so they're not even going to be able to replace them until then.
Okay, yeah, and like I suppose elsewhere as well, DLR Waves, they did start well against Galway and then took the lead from the spot around the 22nd minute, but then Galway came roaring back with 5 goals all in the second half, and I think as we spoke about, they've a good shout at being involved in the title race as well, and then P-Man's goals came within the first 15 minutes in a comfortable 2-0 win over Cork. Now, the League of Ireland was something that Carla Ward, the Republic of Ireland manager, was speaking about on the Late Late Show, where herself and Heimir Hallgrimsson were speaking to Patrick Keelty, and she was also asked about the realism of trying to get to the 2027 World Cup. So let's just listen to that.
There was huge excitement in the World Cup Down Under. It feels like we're now back to earth a little bit with a bump. 2027 is a World Cup. Is that realistic, do you think?
Yes. Touches on a little bit of the League of Ireland as well. I think we have to identify how we can strengthen the league together. I think we have to identify where we're at as a nation in terms of our group. Certainly I was at the President's Cup at the weekend, and being really honest, I was massively impressed with some individuals there, and I think there's an opportunity where we as an organisation at FAI can help the League of Ireland and help them progress. And yes, it's not full-time yet, but I think that's going to fall into the next 2 years in what we do. It's got to be a bigger picture than just be about the national team. How can we create a pipeline and a healthy pipeline for young girls growing up in Ireland, and making sure that we've got squads capable to compete at World Cups? Short answer, yes. We want to get to the World Cup.
Okay. Short answer, and that's what we want to hear as well. It'd be great if they're at the 2027 World Cup. But Anthony, I suppose in the wider sense as well, there's an important step this week as well, because the head of women's and girls football in the FAI, Hannah Dingley, she is going to be speaking to the media, and I expect you're going to be there as well. Like, what is like, there's an action plan basically. What is that going to entail, or what do you know so far?
Well, we're not sure yet. It will be unveiled tomorrow evening in the Mansion House in Dublin. Raf, I mean, just to rewind a little bit, just to remind people of who Hannah Dingley is, because this will be her first formal appearance in front of the media. She is the head of women's and girls football, succeeded Eileen Gleeson after Eileen took the head coach position of the Ireland women's team, and came with a good reputation. Hannah, she made a lot of headlines a couple of years ago when she became the first woman to manage a men's team in the English Football League. She temporarily took charge of Forest Green Rovers in League Two in around July 2023. She had been working as their head of their academy there. She established the girls' academy at Forest Green during her time there, and then she came to take this job here. She started the role last May. So, I mean, there's a few questions that I'm not sure she's going to field. She might just bat these away, but like, there are certain things around the role itself that she's probably going to have to deal with or be asked about. I mean, Eileen Gleeson, when she left as head coach of the Ireland team, she did have a clause in her deal, in her contract, where she would remain in employment with the FAI in some capacity, but we don't know what exactly it is she's doing at this point in time. There had also been a report just before Hannah Dingley took the job that the position had initially been advertised as a permanent position, but that was changed then to a fixed term position, which led to some candidates dropping out of the race. So obviously this is the kind of role where you'd imagine you want permanency, you want time, so you can have, like, you need to kind of think in 5-year, 5-year blocks with something like this. It's such an important job and such a big job. So I think that she's going to be asked about that. She's probably not in the position to answer those questions. They really are probably more for people like David Carell and Mark Cannon within the FAI. In terms of the strategy itself, and this was one of the stated aims of the FAI Football Pathways Plan that was unveiled last February, to deliver this strategy. And there's, I mean, this will go right from the grassroots up to the top of the League of Ireland, you'd imagine. You referenced earlier facilities, grassroots facilities. I mean, as Rachel alluded to, yes, they have improved in the League of Ireland because a lot of the teams are now playing in the men's in the stadiums, in Talca Park and in Dalymount Park. But at grassroots level, only 33% of clubs have female-friendly toilets. It's at the moment there's about 45,000 women and girls who are registered to play regular competitive football in this country. So I mean that in itself is a big issue. If you're thinking of any young girl who wants to get into the game, has an enthusiasm for the game, to go to a club and to not have a toilet to use like that. So that's a real fundamental thing that you'd imagine will be addressed as part of this strategy. One of the things in the Pathways plan that they stated was an intention to have a second tier in the League of Ireland, so a second division. So potentially we might hear more about that. Will that happen? Like, I personally think maybe it's a little bit early for that. We're still
and Maeve de Burke kind of made the point last week actually that she did.
Yeah. We're still trying to really grow and solidify the Premier Division as we have it right now, and get more eyeballs in it. I mean, I look at even things like I was just looking back earlier on the FAI Cup final attendances, which have declined, in the last 3 years. So in 2022, it was over 5,000, which was a record for a standalone FAI Women's FAI Cup final at Tallaght Stadium. That was Shelbourne and Athlone. Rachel would have played in all three of these games actually. 2023 it dipped to 3,563, and then in 2024 it dipped again to 3,118. Now it was the same teams involved, and you might say there was a lack of a novelty factor maybe, but still, like, I just think for your showpiece day, your biggest day in the women's club calendar, like, you really should be trying to drive that. Like, I would have thought after 2022 they hit 5,000, and within the FAI there might have been. Look, there probably was like a target internally to say, right, well, let's try and get to 8. Let's try and get close to 10 within the next 5 years, as the LGFA have done, and build, particularly in considering that the Ireland national team got to a World Cup within that time. So I think that's disappointing. And then driving attendances at club level across board, someone like Russia Littlejohn coming into the league, that will help, but I think there has to be wider, more concerted plans in terms of getting bums on seats and getting eyeballs on the games. And then beyond that, you think maybe they would look at the women's underage League of Ireland structure. I think it's currently under 17 and under 19s, Rachel. It starts at 17s, yeah. So you think, okay, well, that's quite a big gap, isn't it? If you've got a talented kid, aged between 12 and 15, maybe not quite ready to go up to under 17, are you potentially losing a lot of players there? We've lost the home-based sessions as well, so how is that going to be remedied to catch all this talent and don't let it drain? So look, lots I'm sure to come out of it. There'll be lots of questions around it. It's a big day. It's a big day for her, and it's a big day for the women's game here, because we want to see what is the vision, where are we going, and what's the targets over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and obviously, I suppose the final point, Rachel, it's all about, I suppose, planting seeds and trying to, I suppose, grow the game. In terms of trying to get more, girls involved at grassroots level, what would you like to see going forward, like in an action plan or in any other facet as well?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest one is the facilities. We do see a big drop off of teenage girls, and that's obviously when girls' bodies are changing and they become a lot more conscious, and they need access to toilets. So that's obviously a big one, but. I think it's brilliant that we have a plan now that's just solely focused on the women's game, because we hear a lot about the word equality, and sometimes it's considered just treat the men and women the same, but it's not, that's not really what it is. Our game's in a different spot than men's. We need different things than the men's game needs, so it's not as straightforward as just the men and the women are treated the same. It's different. Young girls need different things than young boys, and young girls drop out different reasons than young boys do. So I think it's great to see something solely focused on the women's game, help grow participation, and then when you do grow it, that you retain it. So I'm excited to see now how tomorrow comes and what's in the plan.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's at the Mansion House, I think 5 o'clock Tuesday evening. But that's it for this week's podcast. Next week, the build-up will crank up towards the first leg of Ireland versus Bulgaria. And as is now tradition on this podcast, we'll be joined by a journalist from the opponent's country. Because of St. Patrick's Day, which falls next Monday, the podcast may come out on Tuesday, but we'll keep you updated on that in terms of what day it does actually or will go out. But anyway, thanks to Richie and Keith earlier, and also to yourselves, Rachel and Anthony. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Raf.